The ASEAN summit is recently concluded, and among the top leaders invited to this event is India's Prime Minister. He conveyed that the 21st century is a century of Asia and reiterated his support for the region. Andrea Santos tells us more.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the 20th ASEAN-India Summit hosted by Indonesia, wherein he emphasized the significance of the bloc and India's East policy, as well as its critical role in the Indo-Pacific Initiative. Modi said, quote, "The ASEAN group stands as the epicenter of growth in ASEAN affairs, valuing the inclusion of all voices. ASEAN has played a significant role in global development, reflecting the ideals of unity, shared destiny, and a common future. As we assume the Indian G20 presidency, we recognize that the 21st century is the century of Asia." The Indian Prime Minister also reiterated his country's strong support for ASEAN and highlighted the resilience of their cooperation in various sectors. Meanwhile, Indonesian President Joko Widodo said that while the cooperation between ASEAN and India has not yet yielded any substantial benefits for the people, it was important to enhance this partnership, particularly given the immense potential of the Indian Ocean. Widodo pointed out that the Indian Ocean's vast expanse connects 33 countries with a combined population of 2.9 billion people and contributes to 1/5 of the global GDP by 2025. The 43rd ASEAN Summit in Indonesia, the current chair of the ASEAN this year, includes leaders from Southeast Asian countries as well as non-ASEAN partners, which took place from September 5 to 7. Reporting, this is Andrea Santos, SMNI News.
In the news, the Philippines and Vietnam are eyeing a 5-year rice cooperation deal that would ensure food security in the country. MJ Mondeja reports from Jakarta, Indonesia.
Haba po kami ay nasa Jakarta, ay walang tigil po ang aming pagtutok sa sitwasyon na ngayon na ating hinaharap tungkol sa bigas.
This is the issue that the president was grappling before attending the 43rd ASEAN Summit in Jakarta, the high cost of rice due to uncertain supply. Upon returning from the summit, the supply of rice was immediately on his agenda. Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh and President Marcos held a bilateral meeting on the sidelines of the ASEAN Summit as both countries are close to finalizing a rice trade cooperation deal that would ensure rice imports from Vietnam for 5 years.
We look forward to having stable framework of cooperation of rice trade for a long period of at least 5 years.
In the Philippines, we have put the frontier sector as a priority in our economic planning and transformation on agriculture, especially with the interface of what we are anticipating in terms of the El Nino and the drought that it brings.
In 2008, the Philippines and Vietnam signed a memorandum of agreement to import 1.5 million metric tons of Vietnamese rice from 2008 to 2010. However, this was affected by the rice tariffication law in 2019, and rice imports from Vietnam did not materialize. Vietnam is one of the top rice-producing countries globally, with 4.84 million metric tons of rice exports from January to July of this year, valued at $2.58 billion. In the first 5 months of this year, the Philippines imported nearly 1.5 million metric tons of rice from Vietnam, accounting for almost half of Vietnam's rice exports during that period. Once the multi-year deal is finalized, the government expects rice prices in the country to stabilize. The president also had a message for the Prime Minister of Vietnam.
We hope that we can find an agreement so that there will be an exchange in terms of all of that.
In addition to the rice deal, Vietnam and the Philippines are also finalizing agreements on maritime cooperation and the both welfare of fishermen from both countries. Apart from Vietnam, President Marcos also discussed rice during a bilateral meeting with Cambodia's Prime Minister. This month, the private sector imported 2,500 metric tons of Cambodian rice into the country.
My administration will continue to ensure that our constructive engagements with ASEAN, our dialogue partners, and stakeholders serve our national interests and the well-being of the Filipino people.
President Marcos has once said that he will lift immediately the price cap in rice supply once the supply normalizes. For Ganamabulog, Philippines, I'm Jem Mondejar, SMNI News.
The Philippines is getting ready to welcome the Prime Minister of Australia on his anticipated visit to the country on Friday, September 8th. Sasha Haza reports.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese interacted with 3 Asian countries for this week alone. His 3-nation trip includes a bilateral visit to the Philippines on Friday as Canberra strives to foster diplomatic ties with regional partners. Albanese's 3-nation tour started in Jakarta on Wednesday for the 43rd ASEAN Summit and related meetings. It will be followed by a trip to the Philippines on Friday, where he is expected to meet President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to discuss how the 2 countries can strengthen cooperation on defense and maritime security. The visit will make Albanese the first Australian Prime Minister to visit the Philippines in the past 20 years. From the Philippines, the Australian leader will travel to India to attend the 2-day G20 summit this weekend. Albanese also confirmed his plan to visit China later this year after talks with the Chinese premier on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit. Reporting from Sydney, this has been Sasha Hassa, SME9 News, Australia.
China reaffirmed its unwavering commitment to respect Cambodia's sovereignty during a recent visit by a Chinese official to the Southeast Asian country. Chatmong Kolpisamay-Gusol reports.
A visiting Chinese official expressed the full support of Chinese President Xi Jinping for the new royal government of Cambodia, led by the Cambodian People's Party, or CPP. Liu Jianchao, director of the International Liaison Department of the Communist Party of China, or CPC, paid a courtesy call to Samdech Hun Sen, president of the Cambodian People's Party and the country's former prime minister. The Chinese official also paid a courtesy visit to Hun Manet, the newly appointed Prime Minister of Cambodia and President of the CPP's Youth Wing. The discussions focused on several mutually beneficial bilateral issues, including the post-election situation in Cambodia, the celebration of the 65th anniversary of the establishment of Cambodia-China diplomatic relations, and the Cambodia-China Friendship Year. The 2 parties expressed satisfaction over the strong and dynamic momentum of the strategic partnership in all aspects of cooperation between both countries for prosperity, peace, and development in all fields. They are committed to enhancing relations at all levels. Both parties have pledged to continue communication, visit exchanges, and mutual support in regional and international forums. The ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, also elevated the bilateral ties between Cambodia and China to greater heights. รายงานจากราชบุรี นายชันมงคล พิสมัยโกศล SME News ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ